when the sun begins to set and darkness starts to surround you. Your mind and body remember there is something to fear about the dark. What it is, you may not know, whether you heard it or saw something, or just have that feeling in your gut. You know it's safer in the light. So come, gather by the campfire as we share stories of the creepy and unexplained. But beware, this is Outside the Light. Welcome back to the campfire, everyone. I'm happy you've joined us tonight. Before we start the show, I wanted to ask you, have you been hearing that sound that calls from inside the darkness? You know, that feeling like you're being called to create creepy content, like with stories or artwork? If so, we're looking for narrators that would like to lend their talents to help make amazing stories come to life for our listeners. Or maybe if you're an artist that likes to draw or paint or even graphic design, email us some of your artwork, especially if something from one of the stories struck you. I would love to feature it on the podcast or the YouTube channel and share your art with the rest of the campfire. We're also looking for listener stories, so if you have something creepy that has happened to you or your family, something you can't explain, or even a spine-chilling encounter that you'd like to tell us about, send us an email at outsidethelightstories@gmail.com. Or you can join our Patreon, where you can gain access to our Discord server, where you can share your story with me and other members of the campfire personally. I'm also working on setting up where you can be featured on the podcast and tell your own story in your own words. After all, that's the entire reason we started Outside the Light. I want everyone at the campfire to have a chance to share their creepy, unexplainable, and spine-chilling stories. With all that being said, let's start the show. We have an excellent story for you tonight about how your summer vacation can turn into a summer nightmare. This happened this summer break after my freshman year of college. My girlfriend Maddie and I had been dating for just under a year, and we were in that phase where being together all the time felt essential, like oxygen. So when I told her I was heading up to my grandparents' cabin for a few weeks to help clean it up, she asked if she could come with me. It sounded like an adventure to her. Off-grid, quiet, romantic. Just the two of us. We were both burnt out from finals and a bit sick of people, to be honest. So the idea of disappearing into the woods for a while sounded perfect. My parents were fine with it. They trusted us. And the cabin wasn't exactly in Cancun. It was remote and old and smelled like mildew and pine needles, but it was safe. The place had been sitting mostly untouched since my grandparents passed away a few years ago. My parents kept it for sentimental reasons, but only went up there once or twice a year to clean it. It was about a 20-minute drive from the nearest town, a one-street kind of place with a diner and a gas station and small essential stores, but not much else. When we arrived in early July, everything felt peaceful, idyllic even. Maddie and I spent our days kayaking on the lake, grilling out on the deck, and sitting around the fire pit at night. No phones, no internet, no noise. It felt like we were the only two people in the world, and for a while, I loved that feeling. But around the end of the first week, that peaceful feeling started to unravel. It started with small things, nothing major. One afternoon, Maddie noticed the shed door behind the cabin was wide open, even though I was sure that I had locked it the night before. Then, a few days later, the stack of firewood that I had neatly arranged was scattered all over the yard, like someone had kicked it apart. We blamed raccoons or maybe a bear at first, though there were no tracks and no mess, just the wood being knocked over. Still, it didn't seem like a big deal. We cleaned it up and moved on. But I started noticing something else that bothered me much more. There was this patch of woods behind the cabin. It was thick and gnarled and very dense. I remembered it vaguely from when I was a kid. My cousins and I used to call it the snarl. We made up dumb ghost stories about it, but we never actually went in. None of us were brave enough. It wasn't really spooky back then, just unpleasant, and mosquito-ridden and hard to walk through, like full of thorns and burrs. Now, though, it looked and felt very different. Every time I looked at it, I felt like something was looking back. One afternoon, we were sitting on the back deck drinking iced tea when we both heard it. There was movement coming from deep in the snarl. Not an animal scurrying, it was slow and deliberate. It sounded like creaking of a tree, even though there was no wind at that moment. Then there was what sounded like crunching steps and limbs breaking. Maddie set her drink down and stared into the trees.
Did you hear that?
I nodded, listening. Probably an animal, like a deer or something. She squinted.
That didn't sound like a deer.
We waited. The noise didn't continue. I called out just a casual, "Hello?" like someone might actually answer, but nothing happened. We went back inside eventually, but Maddie kept glancing out the window.
It felt like it stopped when we noticed it.
She said.
Like it didn't want to be heard.
That was the first night we locked every window and door. The next morning, I got it in my head to go into the snarl and clear a path. I told Maddie it was just curiosity, but I really think I needed to prove to myself that there was nothing to be afraid of. Maddie was skeptical but agreed to help. So we put on some thick clothes and gloves and took a machete and a hoe from the shed. It took hours, swearing, sweating, and we were covered in mosquito bites, but we finally carved out a clearing maybe 10 feet wide. That's when I noticed something weird. The ground in the center of the clearing was packed tight. Not like the rest of the forest where the soil was soft and loamy. This was hard packed dirt, as if something had been walking around here over and over. It didn't go anywhere. It just stopped in the middle of the clearing like a path that had worn itself into a dead end. That's when we noticed the rope. It was tied around one of the thicker trees near the edge of the clearing and up over one of the heavier limbs. Old nylon, frayed and discolored. It had clearly been there for years. The bark had started to grow around it. The rope wrapped around the branch and was frayed, swaying in the wind. But the knot around the trunk looked intentional, strong, like it had once held something heavy. Maddie stared at it for a long time and said quietly,
I don't think that was for camping.
I told her, maybe someone used it for hunting, like when you're skinning a deer. We stared at it for a little while longer, continuing to discuss it before I cut it down and threw it into the fire pit. Things seemed to escalate quickly after that. That same night, I woke up out of nowhere at exactly 3:12 a.m. I just sat bolt upright, heart pounding, for no reason at all. Maddie was still asleep beside me, so I got up and I checked the doors. Everything seemed fine and locked up, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been woken up for a reason. The next morning, I found the back door ajar. I was sure, absolutely sure, that I had locked it the night before. Maddie hadn't used it. I asked her whenever she woke up. That's when I decided to start sleeping with a machete next to the bed. The night after that, I woke up again at 3:12 a.m., just like clockwork. I stayed in bed, eyes open, just listening. About a minute later, I heard thudding and branches breaking outside at the back of the cabin. I lay there paralyzed, every hair on my body standing straight up. Eventually, I must have fallen asleep again, because the next thing I remember is the sunlight pouring in. Maddie woke up groggy and rubbed her eyes.
"You look like crap,"
she said. I told her that I didn't sleep well, and that's all. I needed to know what's going on, so that day I bought a cheap wildlife camera from the hardware store in town. Motion activated, infrared, and easy to use. I strapped it to a tree facing the back of the cabin and set it up so that the snarl was on one side of the camera and the back of the cabin was on the other. That night we went to bed early. I didn't wake up at 3:12 though, because I didn't sleep at all. I just kept thinking about the camera, excited yet terrified about what I might capture. The next morning I pulled the SD card and checked the photos on my laptop. Most of them were of animals, like some raccoons and a deer just passing by. But then I came across a photo taken exactly at 3:12 a.m. There was a figure standing just inside the tree line of the snarl. He was tall and thin, wearing dark clothes and muddy shoes. I couldn't see his face directly, but his head was tilted slightly, like he was looking directly at the cabin. I showed it to Maddie. She stared at the screen, her face unreadable.
"That's not a hiker."
"No," I said. "I think it's someone that's watching us." The next few nights were hell. Every night I was up at 3:12. Every night there was a new photo. Each one the man was getting closer towards the cabin. In the one from last night, he was by the edge of the deck on the back porch. I shoved a chair underneath the handle of the back door, and I told Maddie we're leaving in the morning. That night we didn't sleep at all. We sat by the fire in the living room holding hands, both of us too scared to talk about it. At 3:12 a.m. we started to hear a faint tapping noise. I thought it was water dripping at first, but it continued. I followed the sound and crept towards the kitchen with a machete in my right hand. Maddie followed behind me, holding the flashlight. We didn't turn it on until we reached the kitchen window. Tap, tap. When we did, the beam lit up a pale, purple face pressed against the glass. His head was still tilted to the side, with long, greasy black hair swept over his face. His neck was elongated, bruised, and broken, with a rope still attached tightly in a noose around it. His hand was raised with dirty fingers, slowly tapping on the glass. We both screamed, and the light slipped from Maddie's hand and shattered on the tile. I grabbed her arm and we ran to the bathroom, which had no windows, thank God. We barricaded the door and didn't move until dawn. We left that morning, threw everything in the car, and didn't even look back. On the way home, I told Maddie I completely forgot to grab the trail camera from the tree. 2 weeks later, my dad drove up to the cabin to make sure everything was locked up. I stayed home to continue packing and getting ready to go back to school as the new semester was about to start. When he got back, he mentioned something in passing that nearly stopped my heart. "Hey," he said, "kinda weird, but did you buy a trail camera while you were up there a couple weeks ago?" I stared at him. "Yeah, I did. I was trying to see what animals were around outside making those noises at night. They were kind of freaky." He shrugged. "Okay, well, you left it on the back porch on the table. I brought it home for you. I forgot to bring the laptop with me, so I couldn't check it out, but let me know if you caught anything interesting on the camera. Oh, and son, please, next time, rinse off the porch before you leave. You guys left muddy footprints everywhere out there." I stared at him and reached for the camera. "Thanks, Dad, I will." I started walking back to my room. I knew I didn't leave the camera on the table. I completely forgot about it when we were rushing to get out of there that morning. I pulled the SD card from the camera and put it in my laptop. There were 14 images. Every single one of them were of the man's face, with a different date, but exactly at 3:12 a.m. I was freaked out. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I can't wait for summer break to be over. Check us out on social media, where we keep you updated about what's going on with us and even give you a teaser for that week's episode. If you'd like to support us, check out our Patreon, where you get early access to episodes, a shout out on next week's episode for all new Patreons, access to our Discord server, and soon we'll have Patreon-only goodies. Or if you want to do a one-time donation, you can buy me a coffee so I can stay up late making creepy content. We will soon also have an Etsy store with awesome Outside the Light swag. All of the links are provided in the description below. So give us a like or subscribe and leave us a review and share us with your friends. There's always more room by the campfire. We thank you for joining us tonight. If you have a story you'd like to share with us, please email us at outsidethelightstories@gmail.com. Or by joining our Patreon, you get access to our Discord server, where you can share your stories with us personally. But before we leave the campfire, for those of you who feel like you're still in some darkness in your life, I leave you with these positive words. All our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. Walt Disney. Psalm 37:4 says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." As I put this campfire to bed, remember, if you can't find a light around you, then be the light in your world. You're always welcome around the campfire. I'll see you next week, everyone. Good night.